Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat we read Parashat Shemot. And as the people of Israel, last couple of parshas, descended into the exile and become slaves, a leader emerges. This is the parsha that we meet Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, for the first time. And we hear about what it is that makes him become a leader. I want to speak about an interesting and beautiful encounter that he has, his mystical experience as he's walking through the desert and he sees this burning bush. And through the burning bush he hears the voice of God speak to him. So I want us to read the psukim and maybe a couple of midrashim, and through that kind of see what it is that actually happened there. So the story has it that Moshe Rabbeinu was walking through the desert, and it says that he came to the mountain of God in Horeb. And suddenly, an angel comes to him through labat ha'esh, let's say through the fire mitoch hasne, out of the bush. Vayar v'ine hasne bo'er ba'esh v'hasne einenu ukal. And Moshe sees that the bush is burning, but it's not consumed. Vayomer Moshe. Usually we stop here. But the next pasuk is a very important one. It says, Vayomer Moshe, asur ana ve'er'eh et hamar'eh hagadol hazeh, madua lo yiv'ar hasne. Moshe says, there's something interesting happening. I'm going to walk off the beaten path. It's interesting. The Hebrew word is asura, which literally means I'm going to do something forbidden. I'm going to go a little bit off the way that usually people walk. And I'm going to see what is happening here. There's something unusual. And then it says, Vayar Hashem kisar lir'ot, vayikra elav Elohim mitoch hasne. And God saw that Moshe went off the beaten path to see. And that's when God speaks to him. Something very interesting happens here. It's not just that God is speaking out of a burning bush. It's that Moshe Rabbeinu decides to take a minute, to take time out, to go off his usual way of life in order to see what's happening around him. The Midrash is very interesting. The Midrash looks at certain words, and it says, Vayera elav. Elav means to him. And the Midrash says in Midrash Rabbah, there are many other people around there with him, but he was the only one who saw it. Do you understand? What an amazing concept. This bush has been burning for years, for centuries. But God spoke to Moshe. And many other people were around there. But he was the only one who saw it. Vayera elav, to him. And then belabat ha'esh. The Midrash says the word labat, which means the core, also means the heart. And the Midrash says this experience wasn't just an outer one, but it took place in Moshe's heart, in his lev. Meaning we're not talking about an objective experience, but a subjective one. And the last Midrash, which is mind-blowing, says that somebody asked Rav Yoshua ben Korcha, why did God speak to Moshe through a bush and not through a different tree? And this person looked. He was looking for an answer, and Rav Yoshua ben Korcha said, if you would speak to him from a carob tree or from a different tree, you'd ask, why that tree? Meaning, the truth is that everything in the world is filled with godliness. So also a bush. But Moshe could have heard the voice of God speak through everything. Because the truth is, and we're speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu having a mystical experience. In order to have a mystical experience, a couple things need to happen. One of them needs to be that you're willing to take a little bit off the main path. And path, we're not talking about just a concrete way that people walk in the world, but you have to be a bit of a loner. You have to be willing to tread through places that not everybody's willing to go. You know, and when you're a little bit alone, you have to be willing to see that there's a difference between the objective experience happening outside and subjectively what's taking place inside your heart. Through being in places where nobody's always there, you're able to be aware of what's happening inside of you. And by being aware of what's happening inside of you, inside of your heart, suddenly you're able to hear the voice of God. Not just in a burning bush, but in everything. And in that sense, I think that the last Midrash is the most wonderful one, because it says that Moshe could have heard the voice of God speak through everything around him. And if I want to go back to why God spoke to Moshe, it was because he saw that he had that attentiveness, that willingness to break the path a little bit, to leave the normal way, to listen where nobody else was listening. Can you imagine how many people might have walked by and not even seen the voice of God speak to them? And Moshe, as a leader, is showing us how important it is that in every little thing, every path we're taking in this life, to take time, to take a second, to listen attentively to reality as it's unfolding around us. Because when we do, we can hear the voice of God. I think about us walking, running every day of our life. Life swallows us up. I'm getting on a train, getting on a bus, running here, running there, on the subway, off the subway. How many times do I walk next to somebody and something for a second grabs my eye? But I say, what do I know? It doesn't, he looks familiar. Maybe there's something I need to speak to him, maybe not. But that makes us uncomfortable, so we look at our newspaper, we put our eyes down, or we do something else. But the truth is, there are thousands, millions, everything around us is a burning bush. But we need to be able to take time, to take a breath, to be deeply connected inside, to be able to be enough to be able to listen to what's happening outside of us. And maybe I'll just end with a poem by a poet by the name of Elizabeth Browning. And this is part of the poem that she writes. Earth is crammed with heaven, and every bush is afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. Shabbat Shalom.